All right. Hi, y'all. I'm Savannah Barrett. I am the Exchange Director for Art of the Rural and the co-founder and director of the Kentucky Rural Urban Exchange. I'm so pleased to be with you today. Welcome to Won't You Be My Neighbor, the Kentucky Rural Urban Exchange's new digital exchange platform. Here we'll gather as a community of Kentuckians to lift up homegrown efforts to provide support, community, skill building, and connection to people and places during the crisis. As always, with a RUX gathering, we want to begin our time together by acknowledging that we stand on native land. For me in Louisville, that land has been inhabited by the Shawnee, Cherokee, Hopewell, Adena, and Osage people. We acknowledge that present-day Kentuckians represent nearly 200 tribes with origins across the United States, and that our communities include diverse Native American experiences. We also acknowledge that our understanding of the history of this place is incomplete, and we honor all those who have come before us to steward this place. So, wherever you are joining us today, we welcome you. We thank you for joining us. We are particularly excited for this first episode of Won't You Be My Neighbor because we get to uplift the efforts of 4 women who have mobilized quickly to create amazing programs that are serving their communities and advancing their mission. Today, we are joined by Lindsay Ofsasik of the Lee Initiative and their Restaurant Worker Relief Program, Allison Huff of Elevator Artist Resource and their new Artist Relief Trust, Ashley Bledsoe of With Love from Harlan, and Ashley C. Smith of Black Soil, Our Better Nature. So before we jump in, just a few reminders of how we'll connect with each other today. This particular digital exchange is designed to provide practical advice on how to support your communities. So each panelist will share the story of their program, offer details on how to launch a relief effort, and answer your questions. We know that we'll share a meaningful conversation today, and we truly do invite you to participate. So please keep an eye on the chat function where panelists will be sharing links of their program that you can check out, photos and videos, during or after the webinar. And please also use the chat function yourself so you can post questions that you'd like to see us answer in the second half of the program. So with that, we are pleased to welcome our first panelist, Lindsay Ofsasik. She is the co-founder and managing director of the Lee Initiative. Throughout her 20-year career in the restaurant industry, Lindsay has devoted tireless hours to all aspects of the food life cycle, from farming to distribution to front and back of house. Lindsay co-founded the Restaurant Workers Relief Program last month to provide food, funds, and supplies to out-of-work restaurant workers across the country. In partnership with Maker's Mark and Chef Edward Lee, the Lee Initiative has launched relief centers in 15 cities, it's probably more since I wrote that, to support restaurant workers who have been laid off or lost pay, and they have served more than 60,000 meals in just 4 weeks. It's incredible. So welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you. So yeah, 3.5 weeks ago, the Lee Initiative was focused on mentorship and helping women rise into leadership positions because we saw that as the most pressing need in our industry at the time. Fast forward really quickly, on Sunday night when we got the directive that all restaurants would be closing in the state of Kentucky, we had no idea what to do. So we quickly pivoted and turned our restaurant, 610 Magnolia, into a relief center for restaurant workers. We had a lot of food. We had a lot of, things that were going to go bad. So we did what we know how to do, which is cook it and turn it into meals for families to go. We quickly stocked a store with things from diapers to paper goods, any sort of needs for families, especially because they were the most vulnerable to this really quick closure. We already had a partnership with Maker's Mark, and the cool thing about them is they don't just fund your programs, they actually are boots on the ground. So they showed up to help us launch this Restaurant Relief Center, which opened the following Monday. So we had 24 hours, we built a store, we just went with it. Maker's Mark was there to witness what we had done, and the need was great. The first day that we were open, 350 people showed up in the first hour. We were fortunate that they had some very quick thinking and realized that this wasn't just a Kentucky problem. And they also realized that there were tons of markets across the country who all of a sudden had PR dollars that would not be spent on on-premise events. So they allowed us to pull from those funds, do cash infusions in restaurants across the country, and to essentially allow them to rehire their staff to feed their community. We, as of yesterday, had served 85,000 meals in 20 different programs across the country. We work with not only hospitality workers, but also with first responders in 4 of our markets. So, and I'm also very nervous in webinars, so excuse me.
That was amazing, Lynn. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So up next, we'll introduce Ashley Bledsoe. She's the co-founder of With Love from Harlan and owner of food truck and catering service Taco Holler, which is delicious. She resides in Harlan County, Kentucky with her wife and 3 children. With Love from Harlan is a 501c3 nonprofit located in the mountains of Harlan, Kentucky, and is committed to community outreach through a weekend feeding program, household items for families affected by disaster or emergency, and a variety of year-round projects. So with that, Ashley B., tell us about it.
Hello, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. We started with hurricane relief. We collected items for Harvey and Irma and my doodad. Hold on. Let's see what's going on here. I don't have any sound.
We can hear you, Ashley.
Maybe I do have sound. I'm having technical. No, I'm not. Okay. Anyway. Internet. Okay, so we started as a hurricane relief effort for Harvey and Irma and Florence. And after we gathered items for those groups, we realized that there was a need in our own county for supplies for people who have encountered flood or fire or disaster, or we have a couple substance use disorder rehabilitation centers here, and when those women leave, they don't have anything to start their new lives with. So we started to gather household items for those instances, and then we started to fill in the gap for meals for the homeless and the food insecure, because we realized not this winter, but last winter, that our homeless shelter fed Monday through Friday, but on the weekends, the elderly and the homeless weren't being fed. So we started the weekend feeding program to fill in that need. And then we started putting up the blessing boxes. Everybody's seen the blessing boxes. It's nationwide, but we put those up to fill in the gap for children who were out of school. That way they could go to the park and they could get in the blessing box, and they could get ready to eat foods while they were on spring break, or when they were out for the summer. And then we expanded those blessing boxes list to include foods for the homeless, items for simple meals for families, personal hygiene items. And then we created a list of food resources available throughout, including names, numbers, and resources to help people find housing, pension, pay utilities, find job services, work training, and sign up for GED in higher education. So we do a lot of different things.
Well, it's incredible. It still almost makes me cry to hear you talk about it, Ashley Bledsoe. So thank you very much. And up next, we've got Ashley C. Smith. She is the co-founder of Black Soul, Our Better Nature. Throughout her 20-year career, she has served the community of Lexington and Greater Kentucky through the Fayette Alliance, Lyric Theater and Cultural Arts Center, and the Kentuckyville Urban Exchange, among many others. Black Soil, Our Better Nature is an agro-tourism company connecting Black Kentuckians to their legacy and heritage in agriculture. Black Soil supports Kentucky's Black farmers, growers, and producers through farm tours, dinners, and educational programs that promote self-sufficiency, encourage healthy living, and activate cooperative economics. So with that, Ashley, tell us what it is.
All right. Well, good afternoon. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Savannah, for organizing, and to my fellow panelists. This is such an exciting opportunity to share with the community of how we're mobilizing where we're at, where we're mobilizing with the resources we do have. And so for the past 3 years, myself and my co-founder, Trevor Claiborne, aka Farmer Brown, the MC, have traveled across the state of Kentucky, activating this kind of what's become a self-contained ag economy, a food system. And so in light of COVID-19, our primary business model was around in-person events, and we were peaking at the launch of our season that March 21st, the weekend after the pandemic was declared. And so I found myself really shuddered to my core and scrounging, because it's not planting season, it's way too early. So we just kind of sheltered in place and directed our over 60 Kentucky-based brands, farmers, culinary artists, to resources like the Lee Initiative to get supplies, like Nourish Lexington through Food Chain. So in the sake of building up our own capacity to be able to serve, we shift our youth programming model from in-person through Fresh Shop urban gardening project that would have happened at the Lyric Theater to delivering over 25 seed starter kits to doorsteps of families who registered. And so that was a great opportunity for us to be able to help folks, again, activate our mission towards self-sufficiency. And so as we've progressed, we've connected with partners like Visit Lex to help our culinary artists cultivate videos that will help them get their brand out. That's not going to cost them any money right now. And additionally, we're really working hard with our farmers to help them activate their CSA programs. A lot of folks are expanding their model, and we're looking to help support them through delivery, logistics, and transportation services. And so we're really excited to be able to come to the forefront within the agricultural community and help folks really realize how important it is to know who's growing their food, where their food's coming from, and how they can take steps to, again, be encouraged towards a healthy lifestyle, especially around the huge spotlight on the health disparities and inequities that we are just seeing cripple communities across our country. And so Black Soil really wants to be a partner with folks statewide, like the folks here on the panel and you in attendance here. So we've been working on grants, cultivating some great strategic partnerships around really pulling down the capacity that oftentimes is so very difficult to bring down. And now in light of this, it's like, wow, we're really having to be extremely strategic around being collaborative. So I look forward to continuing the conversation. Thanks.
Thank you, Ashley. And it's really inspiring to see how a small organization is pivoting to take programs online and to organize people. And that's a whole nother kind of relief. So we're really grateful to have you here to talk about that. And with that, I'd like to introduce Allison Huff. Allison is the Executive Director of Commonwealth Theater Center and the founder of Elevator Artist Resource, a hub for artists of all disciplines and creators in the greater Louisville area to access resources, professional development, and promotional tools. She also recently launched the Artist Relief Trust, which provides $500 micro grants to Kentuckiana artists who need help meeting basic needs. The Artist Relief Trust is facilitated by Elevator Artist Resource in partnership with the statewide steering committee and the Great Meadows Foundation and Kentucky Foundation for Women, along with private donors. So $75,000, it's actually more than that now, but at the time I wrote this file, $75,000 have been raised to be distributed. More than 125 relief checks went out this week. So it's just an incredible program. And Allison, please tell us more about it.
Thank you, Savannah. I'm going to start with kind of how Elevator came to be. One, because I'm a terrible storyteller and I always start at like a James Michener novel at the beginning of time. But really, because I think it illustrates kind of the organic way to build community and access the opportunities that are right in front of us. So I've been the managing director of Commonwealth Theater Center for about 13 years now, and that's a theater education organization in Louisville. And through my work at CTC, I got involved with an organization called ACA, the Arts and Culture Alliance, and that is a membership network of all the arts and culture organizations in the Louisville area. When I was chair of that board several years ago, I was asked to be part of the steering committee for the Imagine Greater Louisville 2020, which was a cultural plan. It was a planning process for the Greater Louisville area to just kind of assess what do the citizens in Louisville think about their arts and culture community? What do they want from their arts and culture community? And it was a process of about a year and a half or so in that information gathering, relationship building, putting a plan together. And I was there at that steering committee, kind of representing the organizations in the arts and culture sector. But just from a personal perspective, you know, I have so many great friends and people in my personal network who are artists. And, you know, I certainly recognize that there's an institutional bias in a lot of arts funding. A lot of it is high art, i.e., you know, art that is by, of, and for people who are well off. And there's not a lot of resources or attention paid to independent artists, to let alone to bands, you know, and yet in most people's lives, that's the kind of art that is so present and so meaningful. So myself and some others who were on this steering committee really made an effort to make sure that individual artists and people from popular music bands in the community had a seat at that table. So we invited them to participate as part of that information gathering, invited them to come and have their voice heard. And lo and behold, we heard from enough artists of all kinds that there became initiatives and goals within that cultural plan that related to independent artists. And so at the conclusion of that plan, you know, we had this infrastructure, this directive from the community to start paying more attention to independent artists. You know, and I was kind of looking around, I was like, okay, great, well, now what? And we realized that in order to herd all of the cats of all of these independent artists, we really needed some kind of infrastructure to be a hub, to be able to connect those artists to resources and opportunities, to be able to connect our community to those artists, and to be able to connect artists to each other, to start to break down the silos of the different disciplines and various socioeconomic groups and various geographic group, you know, so trying to make sure that we're building community very, very broadly. And so when this pandemic hit, Elevator Artist Resource, which was that hub that we created, it had been about a year and a half old, not quite a year and a half. We launched in November 2018, and we started with a micro grant event that was just a quick and dirty opportunity to fund artists' projects in one night. We had a process where we had a gathering at a local brewery here in Louisville, put out a call to artists to say, hey, you know, come with an idea for a project. It was a simple little one-page application. We put an independent panel together to review those little one-page project descriptions and budgets, and had a DJ and some food and some beer. And by the end of 3 hours, we were awarding money to artists. So that was our launch event. That was the foundation of what Elevator was really about, to break down those access barriers, make access to resources broad and easy and fun, and build community while we were at it. So when this pandemic hit, it was actually through my relationships with ACA. The current chair of that board called me up just thinking about the impact of this on the independent artists in our community, who we both work with the organizations that we are employed by, but also who are falling through the cracks of the systems. The artists who were employed by the organization I work for and he works for, they're eligible for unemployment. But what about all of those artists out there who aren't? So Elevator was poised, this is what we do, to be able to facilitate a relief effort. But we're a volunteer-based organization. This required a lot of hard work to build a lot of capacity fast. So in the 3 weeks since that initial conversation, we have built a statewide coalition for the Artist Relief Trust, trying to make sure that we've got all disciplines of art represented, that we've got artists at that table, that we have people who work with artists, people who are from the various regions of Kentucky at that table, to be able to get the word out to artists broadly in Kentucky that this is an opportunity, and also who know those artists and who can advocate on their behalf. We created a very simple application form, but it's also a pretty complex system to have to gather. We're approaching 500 applications now, and the process has only been open for a little over a week. As Savannah mentioned, the first round of awards have gone out this week, and that was $64,000. We're still fundraising. We have another, let's see, I think it is about $60,000 raised and pledged. And we're still working for more. We know that there's a lot of need in our state with artists, and we're trying to get cash in their hands as quickly as possible, just to help them meet some of the basic everyday needs.
It's an amazing program, Allison. Thank you for your leadership. So friends, what we're going to do next is ask everyone to go around and kind of break down how they got started. I know that when I look at something like the Restaurant Workers Relief Program with 20 sites feeding 80,000 people, it feels monolithic to me. Like how could I possibly do something like that? Or when I think about $60,000 raised in a week, it can be bewildering and feel distant from a person's ability to contribute. But all of these women have started with just an idea and called the folks that they knew and asked for help where they could and built something truly remarkable. So I want them to share that story with you, both as a practical guide on how you can partner with them or how you can start something similar, but also as an inspiration that whatever it is that you have an idea towards doing in this moment, it's probably worthwhile and you absolutely can do it. So before we break in, because we're dealing with women and they're extraordinarily efficient, we're way ahead of time. So I want to go around and have folks just briefly introduce yourselves and say what it is that you hope to learn from this webinar so that when they go through and break it down, they can be responding to you. So I invite all of you to turn on your video if you feel comfortable, if you're willing. Definitely unmute yourselves. And we'll just go through, and I'm going to call on the name on your account, knowing that for some people you're on somebody else's account, so just keep an ear out. So let's start with you, Nicole.
Hi, this is awesome. This is so inspiring to be able to hear everybody's stories. So my name is Nicole Brazil, and I am a new faculty member at the University of Kentucky in the Department of Community and Leadership Development. And I just recently had a great conversation with Ashley. We're talking about grants. And I'm really particularly interested. I have a teaching appointment and a cooperative extension appointment, and formerly was working in Western Kentucky at Western Kentucky University at the Glasgow campus in Barron County for 7 years as a sociology professor. So I'm still getting my bearings in this new job, but I'm really particularly interested in how you use storytelling to lift up communities and how we can leverage the amazing system of cooperative extension to be able to get more of these types of stories out. So it's really exciting to be here today, and thanks for organizing this, Savannah.
All right, up next on my screen, we've got Isaac.
Everybody, I'm Isaac Fossil Van Wyk. I'm in Louisville, and thank you to Savannah for organizing and for all of y'all for sharing these amazing projects. I'm an independent artist and puppeteer, and I guess one thing that I'm very curious about in this moment is like how people in my position who are of relative privilege and are finding themselves with a lot of time on their hands can maybe tap into programs like the ones that y'all are sharing about, and or I mean I feel very inspired to activate people that I know around similar ideas. So maybe it's just that. But thanks again. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Colette, you're next on my screen.
Hi, I'm Colette Crown. I'm going to pull my headphones off. Sorry, it's hard to talk when you have headphones. I am in Lexington, and my interest is kind of multifaceted. I sit on the Community Advisory Council for the Foundation for a Healthy Kentucky. So I'm coming at it partly from a community health aspect. So I'm especially interested about the farmers and how we might connect them in with the foundation, because health inequities are a huge issue for the foundation right now. I'm also the parent of an independent artist who just went through the process of applying for unemployment in Kentucky, to be told that she is not eligible because most of her recent gigs have been out of town, actually out of state. She is a musical theater performer. And so now she has the dilemma of, does she try to apply for unemployment in the state where she was the longest for summer? Does she try to convince the employment people here that she deserves it? So I think there are a lot of issues for independent artists that we really don't even know about until they start to try to work their way through the system. And for myself, I'm just looking for whatever ways that I can help, and I am finding you guys to be inspiring. So thank you.
Thank you. How about you, Mark Brown?
Hey, Savannah and everyone else. Mark Brown here from Frankfort, Kentucky. I'm the Folk and Traditional Arts Director for the Kentucky Arts Council, and also a new member of the steering committee for the Kentucky Rural Urban Exchange. And I'm eager to learn about and hear about and be inspired by the stories of the panelists today. So thanks for putting this together.
Absolutely. How about you, Mackenzie?
Hello. Yeah, thank you to everyone for putting this on. It's been really insightful and interesting to hear everyone's different initiatives and perspectives. I am in Louisville. I'm a senior producer at Curtis Creative. We do a lot of video, photo, design, strategy, that kind of thing. And yeah, I was just really interested in joining just to hear what's going on around the state and maybe get some insight and, you know, what are the initiatives we can help, or what are the things we should put our resources towards or stay away from on that hand. Yeah, so thank you, everyone.
Thank you. How about you, Tansy?
I was muted and then I was like, I can't get, I was going to talk to you all, not with you all not being able to hear me. Sorry, I just popped off of another webinar about something else and popped in here. I'm in Lexington and I work for Pantry Food Bank, and I'm really kind of just here to hear what all is going on from you guys before I go to my next webinar today. And Mark, actually, hi, I want to do a community scholar project, an oral history project, so I'm going to talk to you by email later on.
Great.
So
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Making connections. How about you, Alexia?
Hey y'all, I am Alexia. I'm in Harlan County. I am the project director for a workforce development project here in Harlan County. And I'm just interested in hearing what you all have to say so I can stay connected with what is going on outside of my apartment.
Amen.
So I'm good.
How about you, Sarah?
Hey, sorry, I'm backlit, and part of my visual anonymity, I'm also schooling a 9-year-old right now. And he walks back and forth in his underwear during webinars, so I figured I wouldn't do that here. I am the oral history administrator for the Kentucky Oral History Commission, which is the Kentucky Historical Society. So I'm interested in all the different ways that folks are activating in the midst of a pandemic from a historical perspective, thinking about what, you know, people in the future are going to want to know about this time that we're in. And also the way, I think Nicole actually said it better than I did about how people are using stories. That's an oral historian's sort of bread and butter. And I'm also a member of the Rural Urban Exchange Steering Committee, so I'm here to support a new kind of way of doing things for us.
Thank you, Sarah. How about you, Whitney?
Hi, my name's Whitney. I'm with the Homeless and Housing Coalition of Kentucky. My position is new to HHCK, so I'm in a development position. So I was kind of curious how folks were utilizing storytelling to and how they were changing, reacting to COVID-19 in the era of being challenged to fundraise differently, because HHCK has not fundraised around storytelling. I think it's tricky to storytell without exploiting at the same time with our homeless population and those that are experiencing hardships. So, and then also in this time, it's hard to storytell and gather stories when we can't really do face-to-face contact and trying to get things over the phone. So just kind of curious what other folks are doing and hearing how what you guys are up to. So.
Thank you. It sounds like it looks like we have one person by phone, and I don't know your name, but your area code is 309.
Hi, it's Taryn. So
Hi, Taryn.
I just called in for today. So yeah, my name is Taryn. I work at UK in student affairs there, and I am also on the Rural Urban Exchange Steering Committee. And I just, similar to what other folks have said, I just wanted to pop in today and just hear about some of the different initiatives that are going on around the state and just see what are some ways that we can be supportive of them.
Amazing. Thank you. So thanks for jumping on, even if you weren't prepared to be on video, y'all, and just telling us who you are and where you're coming from. I think it really helps us tell the story that you need to hear. So with that, I'm going to come back around to our panelists and again, ask y'all to break it down. How'd you get started? What were the practical steps that it took to launch the program that you're doing now, or to redirect what you were planning on doing to still be meaningful and impact your mission? And with that in mind, beyond just sort of this step-by-step, this is how we built it and made it happen, as folks have asked, let's be attentive to the ways that we're telling the story of what we're doing and telling the story of our communities. And also, you know, if there's a part of your project is made richer or more vibrant from the cultural perspective of your place, let's hear that too. So with that, Lindsay Opsasic, can we come back to you? Did Lindsay get lost? Okay. We will go to Ashley Bledsoe and I will find Lindsay.
Hello, it's Ashley Bledsoe again. So I would say one of the greatest things in times like these, when a variety of people are affected by the COVID-19, is to reach out and find the areas of the greatest community need and those areas that have the greatest amount of support, because you simply cannot do this alone. We get a lot of requests sometimes with people that say, hey, we'd love to have a blessing box, or hey, do you deliver to this area? And it's like, well, who in your community is going to help support us? Because we can't just drop a blessing box there and it magically be filled. We have to have community partners that are going to go out and be the hands and feet. And with meal delivery, it's the same thing. We have people reach out to us and they're like, hey, will you deliver to Kaywood? For those of you who do not know, we are in Appalachia. So we're in a very small town and all of our little communities are spread out. And so we're like, well, do you have a church or organization or a PTO or someone who would pick up meals to deliver to these students or the elderly? And they're like, we can't do it by ourselves. So my number one step is you can't do it alone. You need community partners. So reach out and find support to help you get through this. My second step is find an accessible, safe location for targeted outreach of the most vulnerable. If you have outreach and it's not accessible to the most vulnerable, then really, why are you there? If you cannot reach out to the people who need it the most, then why engage in that outreach to begin with? We don't, hospitals don't have healthy people. They take the sick people. So if you need to reach out to the poorer people or to the homeless, then you need to be in an accessible, safe location for them. And then you got to know the rules, cities, communities, county ordinances. Our health department told us whenever we started doing our meals program, they said, you're not required to have a 3-compartment sink. They said, if you are giving the meals away to people, you do not have to meet the same rigorous standards of a restaurant. And that was something that we had actually been told why we couldn't provide meals to people, was because we didn't have a 3-compartment sink. And the health department let us know that in our area, that was not a requirement for meals that were given away. And that was a relief, because there's so many people that may want to encourage you, but then there's people that also want to kind of tear you down. So if you know the rules, then you feel empowered. So if you know of a site for a blessing box or for meal distribution, just reach out to your county government and see what you need to do to be able to start that program up. We love working with people and we love our volunteers. But one of my biggest things, I have recently taken over the job of being the meals coordinator. And that wasn't originally my job. That was my wife's job. And everybody would volunteer, and everybody would want to come and help on the same day because it's a holiday or because the weather's nice. And in the beginning, when you set everything up, set up a rotation for your volunteers. That way you don't have 10 on one day and 2 on the next. And I know that there are groups that'll want to volunteer together, but if you don't spread that out, then you're going to cheat yourself out of resources. Because there are times that we will set up a meal and we will have 8 people in the kitchen trying to box up meals. And then there are other days that it's time to cook those meals and it's just me in the kitchen by myself, and a delivery driver comes and we box up all the meals ourselves, and then they leave and I'm stuck at the church by myself passing out all the food to the people. So set up a rotation for your volunteers. Create jobs. That way you can organize everybody and give them a position. Organize and then utilize people, their strengths. If you know someone is a little bit slower, let them bag meals or let them put cans, in a blessing box or in a food box. Utilize your people, know their strengths, and that way everybody can be in a position that they enjoy. And our mantra is be love, be hope, be light. But when times are rough, our saying is you got to get through the greedy to get to the needy. There are always going to be people who don't really need the resources that you provide, but they'll take them because they're available. And so you've just got to push through, and you've got to get through the greedy to get to the needy, because it's the people at the bottom that really need all the help that they can get. And that's my spiel.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Can you tell us, before we switch over, can you just give us sort of a day in the life, like what happens in a given day with the kitchen, and what are the roles, so that folks understand, if they were going to go and start one this weekend, this is going to be the sort of run a show, and these are the folks you're going to need to be doing these things.
Let's see here. So normally I'm the one that cooks. 90% of the time I'm the one that cooks. We serve about 100 meals every time that we set up. So if we do Saturday and Sunday, that's 200 meals easy. Sometimes we do 125 on a Saturday or a Sunday, and one person cooking for over 100 people. You got to use a lot of math on that. I get up, I go and I buy the food, I go to the church, I prep everything, and I get it cooking. While I'm cooking, we have staff that bags cookies or packages cornbread or bakes garlic bread or prepares any of the sweets or any of the breads, and they get those ready for individual distribution. We also have people that wipe down and sanitize all the tables in the dining room when we had dining room access. Right now, we have a large table set up in front of our steps that go down to our dining room, and they block off our handicap access as well. But people can come up to the table and receive their meals once they're packaged, but don't have dining room access. So we have someone that stands at the table. We also have people that stand on the line who portion the meals. That way, everybody gets the same amount. One person isn't making all the meals. Well, unless it's a 2-person day, then you're making all the meals. But if you have 3 volunteers, then one will do the meat, one will do the side, the other one will do the bread and the desserts, and then we have the last person who takes the meal, closes it up, and they bag it and they put it in big Tupperware containers for them to be delivered. And we don't deliver to just anyone. We have a list that came from the homeless shelter that we started this program at. And they are elderly and shut-ins that live in one of the housing authority high rises. And so they don't have vehicles and they're not able to get to the grocery and they're not able to get their own meals. So we have delivery drivers and we just divide everybody out and give each person their own job, because everyone knows that if everybody comes together and then everybody wants the same job. I want a bag of cookies. No, we do not need 4 people bagging the cookies. Like, one of y'all's going to have to scoop the green beans. I'm sorry, it's not glamorous, but, you know, so just give everybody a job and, you know, that is my main thing. Give everybody a job.
I think I've heard that before. Sounds like good advice. All right, with that, thank you, Ashley. Lindsay, how about you? Can you kind of break us down? How did you pivot from a foundation that was focused on uplifting women chefs to running relief kitchens in 20 cities in a couple of weeks? What was that like? You're on mute.
Okay, can you guys hear me? All right. So, I mean, for us, we had this really small organization, and as you all know, it came as a shock to all of us whenever they closed their restaurants. We knew that it had happened in some other cities, but typically in Kentucky, like it's a little slower to trickle down. But it happened, and I was literally standing in the kitchen and had this moment of, you know, my entire organization is based around restaurants. It's not going to be here in 6 months if we don't pivot. And so that's what we did. We looked around and like, okay, what do we have? Like, we have a ton of food. We have people that know how to cook it. We have a community that needs this food. So essentially we just looked around, figured out what resources we had, and how we could utilize those. We had never done this before, so we had to focus on our strengths. Additionally, we did have the partnership with Maker's Mark. And so we leveraged that partnership to open the first kitchen. We continued to leverage that partnership to open additional kitchens, but to be completely honest, crowdsourcing was a huge part of this program. Yes, we had corporate funds, but we have completely matched those with community giving. The biggest way that we did that was by utilizing, you know, the people in our company that were great at storytelling, the people in our company that were great at social media. We wanted to get our story out and we wanted to get it out quickly. We already had a platform for donations, so we utilized that and, you know, made a public statement that every bit of funding that was coming into this program was going to feed our community for the next 2 months. And it kind of just went from there. We were blown away with the amount of community support that we received. In full transparency, we were able to crowdsource $250,000 in 8 days because people wanted to do something and no one knew what to do. This is, you know, we gave them, everyone in the world is touched by someone in a restaurant. Everyone knows people that work in restaurants. Everybody has a favorite server. And so we just kind of put it out there that this, you know, this is a problem. The people that you love no longer have jobs. They're really bad at asking for help. This is how you can help them. And anyone can do that. I know it sounds like a really large number, but most of our donations were $5. It just happens to be that everyone knows someone in a restaurant, so they wanted to help.
I think it's also that y'all did a really great job of telling that story.
Yeah.
So say a little bit about that. I mean, how did you tell a story that stood out from all of the stories in this moment?
Well, I mean, 3 weeks before this happened, we had just launched our Women Chefs initiative with the folks from Kentucky to the World. They're really incredible storytellers. We also fortunately have access, I mean, Chef Lee is a storyteller himself. He is a James Beard Award winning writer. Ronnie Lundy, also on our board and selection committee, helped us get the story out. We literally looked at every person that we were already working with and utilized their strengths.
Mm-hmm. That's Excellent advice. All right, let's pivot over to Ashley C. Smith and tell us how you're leveraging what you've got, how you're turning it around.
Okay, great. So to just echo on a lot of the sentiment shared, we have really dug deep into our network. So we work with farmers, and if you've been tracking a lot of the unintended consequences of the COVID-19 crisis will be the damage to our food chain and our food supply. And so right now, we are actively working within a network of other ag focused organizations such as Seed Leaf, institutions. Here in Lexington, Fayette County, we've petitioned the mayor and the city council for funding to help us activate underutilized farm plots, farm sites, sites across the county to cultivate specialty crop production. And we're also working towards, like I stated earlier, activating delivery. So we sat down, and after we kind of recovered from the shock of everything, we said, who's already doing the community garden, the urban ag, the agricultural sector focused work? And so we reached out to the North Farm, Reva, Russell English, Andrew English. They run a CSA. Andrew also manages the community farm program through Seed Leaf. So with that connection, with that touch point, we were able to hit two, if not more brands within a conversation. So we really wanted to be strategic of, I'm a survivor of the 2008 financial crisis. And so when I started doing development in 2015, though we were 7 years past that, living in a, very first job out of college, you had to learn how to showcase to a funder or some sort of outlet that you could gather as many people as possible, and they could make one investment into many, many brands. And so right now, that's what we're trying to get up off of the ground. If we can work with a public-private partnership with our city and these other ag institutions to replicate models, how can we get out of work people right now working these farm plots that then contribute to the greater good of the population? So if you don't have the capability to scale up that far, you can always start within your own household. And so I'll finish our time today with an activity, a demonstration, but we're really big on grow where you're at. And as we've scaled up, we've also realized that our culinary artists, again, we've plugged them into the work of the Lee Initiative and Nourish because they do have the resources to help folks who are not only in need of resources and meals themselves, but they're helping out of work chefs garner employment. So we've directed folks that way, but we've also directed them to our national media partners. So if you're an artist here, or you are connected to artists, this could be a great time to get connected to your local ag community and help them think outside of the box on how they market their brands, how they promote on their social media using your artistry. And we're also wanting to really address what life looks like coming out of COVID-19. Before this situation, we struggled to pull down equitable funding. And we dream of the day that, like Dr. King said, the content of our character, rather than the color of our skin, determines the ability to really activate equitable funding. And so we want a world that looks not only balanced in our funding, but our health outcomes. And so we're wanting to work with agencies on a local, state, and national level, foundations, to help cultivate this reconnectivity to land for groups of people who have been so marginalized and disproportionately pushed out. And so we want this to be a call-in moment. And so what we've done, again, to just summarize, is we've looked around the table and said, who's doing this work well, who is willing to be equitable and inclusive in their work. And then we also said, what are the community needs? We know folks will need to learn how to feed themselves. We know that folks are out of work. So how do we bring up the work of farming back to a very highly respectable and valued position within an essential worker, within our society? So that is where we're at. If you're an artist, get connected to the people who you can help tell those stories through your medium, through your outlets. If you're with institutions, much like Nicole, who, she stated, we're getting the chance to work together. And how can you utilize your departments and your research and your faculty and everything like that? And for our independent folks who are here today just wanting to learn and listen, we want to encourage you to really shift your dollars to local farmers, because our economy, not only outside of our hospitality with our culinary artists, we're going to need every single person doing their part to rebuild and to survive, so we don't fall deep down into a depression. So that's where we're pivoting and how we're doing that.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I have a quick question if folks are wondering. I know that I'm hearing a lot of folks who don't have any experience with agriculture or with gardening, who are wanting to start growing their own food, but growing from seeds can be pretty intimidating if you haven't done it before. So they're looking for starts, and they're looking for learning opportunities. If they wanted to particularly support farmers of color in Kentucky, are there places that you would recommend where they can get starts, or they can access fresh food if they want to buy from a CSA?
Yes. So right now we are working with farmers in Wayne County, Hutchinson Produce, Lincoln County, Miller's Farm, as well as Omega Star Hobby Farm. We are in Bourbon County working with Stonerview Farm Bed and Breakfast with fresh eggs, LaRue County, full spectrum meat and seasonal produce, Logan County, as well as Hart County. So emailing info@blacksoil.life will help us connect you directly to these producers. For seed starts, that is one of the services that we're offering in this time of building your own garden, coming on site, helping you create your own garden, and then coming back and providing maintenance with that. And we only curate different farm plots in the county, but we also work within a greenhouse. So we do seed starters that way as well. So if you email us, we would love to connect with you.
Amazing. Thanks. All right. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Allison to tell us I think you did a great job of telling us the story of how Elevator pivoted to respond in this moment. But if you could break it down, what did it take to build a statewide steering committee, and how did you, I'm sure it was an iterative process to get all the folks that you needed in that room. And then how did you start to raise the money, and what has surprised you along the way?
Wow, all good questions. Well, I will echo what everyone else has said, that it's about identifying the need, identifying how you, what resources are at your fingertips to try to help fill that need, and then building a good team, giving everybody a job that aligns with their skills, and figuring out what kind of competencies you need on that team in order to do that job that you've outlined, and hard work and communication and organization. It's really, in order to do something like this quickly, it's been necessary to find the doers. There are thinkers, there are dreamers, and there are doers, and having the doers at the table, it has been so important for us to move from idea to action and this quickly. So we, almost everyone who's been involved in the coalition to be able to do the Artist Relief Trust, both with the statewide steering committee and also with Elevator's board of directors, almost everyone still has full-time work that they're doing. So trying to simultaneously be sensitive to their time commitments, but also get the work done has been a challenge. But you know, if you need something done, give it to someone who's already busy, right? But it's also been important for us to try to find the folks who do have some more time on their hands, who can help us out. So building that team has been key, and knowing that none of us can do everything, you know, so we have had folks who have been activated in raising the dollars, especially with the lead donors. And we have the lead donors who are asking other donors, you know, and that's development 101, but so important when you're trying to raise big dollars quickly, that the people who have already given 5-figure gifts are the people who can ask for 5-figure gifts. So that's in addition to having a GoFundMe page where we're doing crowdfunding as well. Yes, the $50,000 gift was really important to get this kicked off, but the $5 gift is every bit as important in helping to pool our resources to help our artists in need. Challenges, I mean, honestly, our biggest challenge has just been time, you know, of finding the time capacity with everyone being so busy to be able to get this done quickly and well. But the need is great. The demand is clearly huge. And everyone has been really pitching in and working hard to make sure that we're getting money in the hands of artists quickly.
Absolutely. Can you share one thing that for you has been kind of unexpected about this process, or that you've had to think quickly around?
Well, as for unexpected, one of the things that has been really special to me is building this statewide coalition, and for it coming together really organically. It started with a lead donor who is from a foundation that has a statewide presence, and wanted the money to be able to go to artists statewide. And so we're like, great, let's do it statewide. And so then putting that coalition together, you know, in a pre-coronavirus environment, the idea of putting a statewide coalition together on a project like this would have been almost unthinkable, you know, but now that everything that we do is through a Zoom meeting, you know, like it might as well come from across the state. And to be able to build those relationships and think about the possibilities for what can come next, after having this urgent need to be able to put this together quickly and activate and build a statewide donor base, just the sense of community and the capacity that we're building for future projects that are statewide is very inspiring to me.
Thank you. All right, folks. So we've heard a little bit more. We've gotten into the nitty-gritty with everyone. I see that Nicole has shared a couple of questions. I invite all of you to use the chat to ask your questions of the panelists, and I'm going to go ahead and pitch out this first one. All right, so how are you trying to mobilize your resources to deal with immediate relief to the crisis, knowing that this will likely be a long haul and that you will need resources and capacity down the road? Not to mention the fact that you don't want to lose all the momentum for strategic efforts that you were already working on. So how do you mobilize your resources for some immediate relief while also keeping the long haul in mind? I'm actually going to ask if Ashley Smith can speak to this first, because I think what you already sort of have touched on this and could be a guide into the conversation.
So let's see here. Here we go. So the question is, if you don't have long sustaining resources, what do you do to prioritize to be able to sustain the mission? Is that kind of what you're asking, Nicole?
Yeah, I've just noticed, like, in the hurry to like do something, right? Everybody is throwing all their energies into pivoting and putting everything they have into immediate relief. But like, you have this sense that, oh my gosh, this is gonna be a big long haul thing. How do we protect our capacity and our resources to make sure that in 6 months from now we're not in worse shape because we're all totally overwhelmed and burnt out and all the resources have been spent? How do we balance those two pieces? And not to mention the fact that, right, people start with all this strategic initiative that they were already working on. Do you let all that drop in order to pivot to do this? Like, how do you, it's just a really hard balancing act. And I was just curious how other people are managing this, because I find this really hard.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so it is very, very difficult when you've spent almost a year and a half planning to the detail an event, a program, a series, and in a moment you literally see it like poof, vanish. And so you've probably noticed I've not mentioned a dime, a dollar amount that we've raised, because we haven't raised any money. We haven't been active in fundraising because more than anything, I wanted to protect the sanity of our network. I wanted to make sure everybody was okay, give them some time to breathe and process, and really focus on what you've already funneled your capacity and your budget around. And that's getting your farm, your operation started. So how can I build momentum in this time when I know I don't have the cash flow or operating dollars that I would need to sustain if we were, rocking with sponsorships, if ticket sales were coming in for in-person events, it would be a completely different situation. And so I am having to work within the parameters of knowing, like, we just received a sponsorship check for an event that we had to cancel, and how can I make that money stretch. And so a program that we're wanting to get off the ground that will cultivate and activate our fundraising efforts will allow folks purchase a meal for a first responder, a frontline worker, essential worker. But I needed to make sure that, I'm a sole proprietor. I don't have a board or advisory council. So I have to take different steps in order to be strategic in the long run. So it's identifying within, again, your strategic partners of what are you already doing? What are you already planning to do, and how can we perhaps work together to shift that online? So I'm working with a collaborator on shifting what would have been an in-person youth camp to an online, like, virtual model, and putting some momentum around higher caliber and higher quality videography in spite of, healthy meals and snacks, because we're not going to be meeting in person. So it's taking the existing work that you're already doing, existing budgets, existing funding that you've raised, to say, okay, what can we swap out in this time? What do we prioritize? So I hope that gives you some hope towards your quandary of, like, yeah, I want to do so much, but, like, again, when you saw the housing bubble burst and the 2008 crisis, like, that came in swift. This is coming in a completely different velocity. And so we have to think in that mindset, collaboratively and very strategically.
Absolutely. So other panelists, how are y'all balancing the immediacy of the need with sustainability of the effort?
For Elevator, we are designed to be responsive to what artists need. So we know that right now what artists need is emergency relief. So we're all in on providing that emergency relief through the Artist Relief Trust Coalition. And so then on the other side of this, then the need will be different. And so we'll reach back out into the artist community and figure out what the need is then, and how to prioritize what that need is, and then activate our organization to try to serve them. So that's very different from Commonwealth Theater Center, where I'm absolutely trying to figure out, what do we do now? What do we spend now? What do we save for later, knowing that recovery is going to be much longer and more drawn out. But for Elevator, it's a pretty simple equation. All in right now with the need.
Wonderful. Other folks?
I watch our dollars. I do the shopping for the meal program. I plan the meals. I know that our meals range between 60 cents to $1.20 a person. So I've got that budgeted out. And we've had some increase in the people who have utilized our program. But I have our meals budgeted for the next year. And so having those numbers available and knowing what we're capable of will see us through until the end, because this is something we do all the time.
How about you, Linz?
Yeah. So our organization has always been set up to pivot pretty quickly because of, problems that arise in the service industry. I can say that initially, the first thing that I did was protect the funds for the Women Chefs Initiative. They are in a separate account. They are waiting for that program to start again. But we did specifically fundraise for the restaurant relief effort. We have no idea how long this is going to last. It's, when we come out of quarantine, it's not going to be like every restaurant opens and they can rehire their entire staff. So we are starting to look at, how do we sustain these kitchens for at least another 6 weeks? And then what does rebuilding look like for us? How can we help in that effort? We don't know yet what we can do. And that's one thing with our organization, is we still are just an organization of 2 people. We have 2 staff members. And so we're doing the best that we can. But when people sign on to work with us, we do inform them, we're building a plane while flying it. We're doing the best that we can. This might not be exactly pretty, but we're all going to get through it together. And again, we do that just by utilizing everyone's strengths and resources.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing way of describing how all of you have responded in this moment, that you're building something while flying it. And I appreciate the grace that you give yourselves in your work, that you know that that what you can do right now is more than enough. Although I know each of you personally too, and know that you're kept up at night by wondering if that's true. So can you speak a little bit to that, just the human side of all of this? All of you are leaning in a moment when I think a lot of folks also feel called to take a step back and reevaluate. So how does that feel, and how are you taking care of yourself and supporting yourself and your family while also supporting your community?
I know for me personally, I am a person that can work 18 hours a day, which is probably not healthy and not something I recommend for other people. But for me, it's, one saving grace in this is I have not felt helpless in any moment of this pandemic. I just did took every resource I could, and my time was one of those, and I pour it into what I'm doing. And I try to focus on the work that I can do in a place that I can make change. A positive side effect of that is I, for the most part, have no idea what's happening in the world. I get one update a day on the coronavirus, and it's usually CDC guidelines that we need to adapt into our kitchens to keep everyone safe. I am fortunate to have a partner that is helping homeschool our children and allowing me the space to do this work. But I also understand that that's not the case for everyone. And I do, I suggest to everyone to do what you can, but know when you need to take a break.
Yeah, I certainly can relate to that. I know that all of these extra tasks, extra hours, putting into Elevator as just a volunteer situation, that's my way of coping. I need to feel like I'm doing something to help, and that's what helps me. So having some purpose and staying busy, that's my way of trying to handle all of this.
Ashley's?
It was really stressful in the beginning because I worked part-time, and then I'm a caterer, and then we also had the nonprofit. And since the convention center closed where I worked and I've been laid off, that also caused several of my large caterings to be canceled. And that's very stressful. But with all of that gone, I was able to step back and look at all the good that we do through With Love from Harlan and focus my attention on making sure that our limited volunteers are safe and confident in the roles that they have. We made sure as soon as, I would say March 15th, we started having our volunteers wear PPE to be able to pass out meals. We wanted them to volunteer with us as long as they felt safe. And we don't ever want anyone to feel that they're putting their life in danger to be able to make sure someone's fed. But we also respect them, and we respect ourselves enough to know that we're not going to put ourselves at risk either. And I think that's really been the human side of it, is we're going to keep doing this as long as it's safe. We have 0 cases in Harlan County confirmed right now. There's speculation that it's here. We just don't know it. But as of right now, we have 0 confirmed cases. And I think that gives us some peace. But there are so many people that can be asymptomatic. You don't know. You just don't know. So you just have to be careful, and you just have to love each other, and you just have to take care of each other.
Yeah, so when this whole crisis started, it was so debilitating. Again, to just see what you feel is your ultimate, just christened, perfect plan. You've got everything laid out, and I have been processing and working through this being such an opportunity to reset and refocus and truly listen in deeply and thoroughly to the work that we were supposed to be doing in the way that wasn't as costly to our personal beings, our relationships. And so that's where I am now. And that's the encouragement that I want to leave all of us. Like, regardless where you found yourself at the beginning of this circumstance, where you're at right now, I'm hopeful, and I am so excited toward the possibility of something new being on the other side of this. Like, if it's not like, we can't let all of this work that we've been doing, go to the wayside, go and being void. Like, we can't forget like who we are in these moments, because we can't go back to how we were before, because it really wasn't that awesome in a lot of ways. And so that's where I am right now. And personally, like, I'm a mommy of 15-month-old twins, so getting to be with them in like a very interesting, deep way. I've been with them, and now it's like being with them in another way. So and being able to dream up new ways that we can serve the community. So that's where I'm at now.
Thank you.
Can we just acknowledge that Lindsay is in like an amazing Peter Gabriel video?
The hydraulics on her car, or like her virtual car, cracking me up. She's like, yeah, whoop, whoop.
I've just got like Sledgehammer running around in my brain.
No.
A sledgehammer.
Lindsay, I can't hear you.
Sorry, guys.
It is amazing. You've turned sideways some of the time. It's pretty great. So for
nice. I'm trying to pack my car. And I have a very fancy living room background that is not mine, I assure you.
So Isaac, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say I have been to Lindsay's house and this is not her living room.
No.
But I do love that strategy. And I'm going to just like put, cathedrals behind me in the future.
Yeah.
People think I'm fancy. Y'all, I know that there is a couple of other questions in the queue, and I want to acknowledge those, but I also we have a surprise treat for you with Ashley C. Smith that is, I think, a very hopeful and ideally generative act. And we all need a lot of those in this moment. So we're going to let the questions beget the answers, or I don't know, I messed up that Baldwin quote already. So Ashley, take it away.
Okay, so Isaac, to answer your question in the chat, this is what we're going to demonstrate. So he's posed a great question about how can like a first-time farmer or gardener or agriculturalist feel a part of the larger food system. And one of the ways you can do that is by growing your own food at home, by easing up the supply chain in our Walmarts and our Krogers. And so we like to use these peat moss seed pods, greenhouses. Jiffy, you can get this at Lowe's, Walmart. I know we're really not supposed to be bouncing from store to store, but you can find this on Amazon. And so this allows you to secure a peat moss pod, which is basically a great value-added product, biodegradable potted soil. Okay. And I have wet this just a little bit. And once you're able to saturate that flat peat moss seed pod, it's going to expand. Okay. Once you saturate it with your water. And this peat moss seed pod, you'll see the opening there. And so seeds right now, again, developing relationships, what you can do with your neighbors on a localized level is, hold on to those seeds that you find when you're cutting your produce, like your bell peppers, your tomatoes. And at the end of the season, after you've dried them out, you can work with your community in doing a seed swap. And that's one way you can feel as an individual as a part of the larger food system. So I've got my peat moss seed pod. I've got my seed. This green screen is tripping me out. So I'm sticking that seed right in the middle there, and I'm going to take my thumb and I'm going to press it in. And so I learned this technique through volunteering with Farmer Brown, the MC, and his youth programming. And I was never a farmer. I'm not an agriculturalist. I'm an arts person. I'm a girly girl, whatever you want to say. And I never thought I would be living on a farm. And so anyone can do this. And so you're going to take this peat moss seed pod, focus 3 times a week, every other day. You're going to put it in your windowsill and you're going to water it 3 times a week, every other day. And as you see those seedlings sprout up, oh gosh, you then will transplant those, transfer them into a pot, a smaller to medium-sized pot. And then when it's time after Derby, not any time earlier, and you can always consult with, your cooperative extension on your planting and growing, but it's a great way to start your seeds now. Holding on to those seeds gives you an opportunity to develop community and generate your part in the larger food system. That's just one way. So that's just a little something we want to leave you with. And we look forward to connecting with you. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Ashley. As Ashley Bledsoe says, we hope you all will be loved, be hope, and be light. We're so grateful for you for you taking your time today to join us. I'm so grateful to Lindsay and Ashley Bledsoe and Ashley C. Smith and Allison Huff for sharing your stories and your strategies with us, for inviting us to collaborate with you. For me at the Kentucky Rural Urban Exchange and Art of the Rural, I'm grateful to count all of you as partners in this work, and thankful for you stepping in at a moment's notice to share with other folks. So stay tuned for what we'll do together in May. Feel free to pitch me. We're pretty open. We just want to, provide meaningful opportunities for people to come together and have conversations that move us forward. So that's a pretty open mission. So with that, thanks everyone for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.